So, قال الله عز وجل. The first discussion is, Allah says. What do you mean by Allah says? So now the muhaddithun and the scholars have explained this in different ways, meaning in different ways. So first of all, from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there's something called Al-Hadith Al-Qudsi. And Qudsi is linked, the ya is nisbati, nadwa, nadawi, Madina, madani. So the ya on Quds is linked, the ya on Qudsi is linked to Quds. And Quds means the sacred court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the hadith al-Qudsi means the hadith which comes from the sacred court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is a hadith al-Qudsi? There's different explanations of this, but the one I find it easy for me to understand, which makes the most sense, is this. Okay? So wahi is two types. One is what comes in the Quran. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the book. He didn't send down a book, but He sent a revelation. And this is preserved to us in the form of the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He explained, or He taught the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam then taught the ummah in the form of hadith. And both go hand in hand. Nowadays you see very commonly that, it's not in the Quran. You see that very, very in the media, people are defensive, they get defensive, or people trying to say something, but it's not in the Quran to cover your, to wear it. It's not in the Quran. Niqab is not in the Quran, or hijab is not in the Quran. Correct, it's not in the Quran. But the Quran itself has been set out to show that, look, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ, that whatever the Prophet tells you, hold fast to that. So technically it is in the Quran. Meaning, not directly, but the Prophet ﷺ has told us that whatever I have commanded you to do, then you follow this. So the hadith of Prophet ﷺ is what? Is a source of Islamic knowledge. We do that in usul fiqh, but just a brief touch on that. So it's also a wahi. Because the Prophet never said it according to his own whims and fancies. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. The Prophet does not speak of his own whims and fancies, rather it's a wahi. Now what's the difference between all of this? You have Quran, you have Hadith al-Qudsi, and you have Hadith. So a simple example is, let's say for example, the teachers had a meeting. Okay? And in the meeting, we decided that these are the new rules for madrasa. We typed them out, we printed it, and put it on the board. Or, the principal dictated it, and then the teacher wanted to write it out, he printed it and gave it to the students. This is the Quran. The exact wording that was demanded, the exact wording was given to you. Do you understand? A second level is, there was a meeting, and in that meeting we decided that now, the pass mark is going to go up from 70 or 70, 80 to 95. Good idea? So the pass mark is going to go up to 95%. Okay? So what happens now? The wording that was said in the meeting is not relayed to you. You say, well, guess what? New rule. The principal and the teacher have decided that from now on the pass mark is 95%. So the person went to the meeting, he got the exact information and he reworded it, but it's exact information. Okay? And then there's another scenario where the principal's not there, the vice principal's not there, but the teacher said, don't write a dictionary. Or don't write in the textbooks, because don't write the answers in the textbook. No, that's what the madrasa rule is, don't write in textbook. No, he hasn't got the exact wording from the principal or the teaching staff or the people in charge of the syllabus or teaching methodology. He hasn't been to a meeting, but he understood from his training that we want the students to be able to read the Arabic text without having diacritics, harakat on it. So now you shouldn't write it in your book and don't use that to teach, because no point. But he hasn't got the exact word, but that's what he's been taught and educated, and he's been trained that way. Similarly, the Quran is when the angel Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam comes down with the exact word from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alif lam mim, dhalika al-kitabu la rayba fihi hudan lil muttaqin. Those exact words came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the Prophet relayed those min wa an, exact, without any tahrif, any kind of changing or reinterpretation. And neither did the Prophet reinterpret or narrate it in meaning, neither does the Ummah. Obviously we say, Allah says in the Quran roughly in our lectures, etc. But when we preserve the Quran, it's exactly as it is. That's why, for example, some scholars have said that you should not have a translation of the Quran without the Arabic. But just to preserve that. Because what happens, let's say for example, somebody says, okay, fihi shifa'un lin-nas. That's Arabic. But let's say somebody translated this. And he translated this as, there is a cure for illnesses in the Quran.
Now what decided?
So the word illness is not in the Quran, is it? This shifa, cure for what? Now one person interpreted it as cure for illnesses. And then one person thinks, okay, let's translate it. And the original text is gone. Now somebody uses that as original now. And then he says, oh, illnesses meaning spiritual illness. Somebody says, no, it means here medical illnesses. And then somebody says, oh, for illnesses meaning, and then the whole tafsir changes, but in reality, that's not what Allah has said. So that's why you find like many of them keep the Arabic intact, so that this is the Arabic from which we have derived, so that we still have access even now to the original text. It's never been, okay, we don't have access to the original text, we're just interpreting somebody else's interpretation. The original text is still there. So anyways, the Quran is the exact word of the Prophet ﷺ. Hadith al-Qudsi is like this, that Allah inspired the Prophet ﷺ there and then he used his own words to express it. Do you understand? And hadith, normal hadith, day-to-day hadith is, Allah never inspired the Prophet to go and say this. The Prophet ﷺ, he found out that a person came to Medina Munawwar in Hijrah, and he only came to get married to somebody. So the Prophet said, well, that's not what Allah wants. I know that's not what Allah wants. Allah has taught me. So the Prophet ﷺ on the minbar, he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, actions are according to intention. The Prophet ﷺ was walking to the market and he found that somebody had a heap of flour or a heap of rice or something, probably flour or wheat. And the bottom, so when you're weighing it, on top was dry and inside was wet. When it's wet, it's going to weigh more. So he put his hand inside and he found it's wet. So what's this? مَنْ غَشَّنَا فَلَيْسَ مِنَّا. Whoever deceives is not from amongst us. It was not that he was inspired there and then. He knew what Allah's ruling regarding cheating is. So he expressed it then. And in here, if he ever says something wrong, Allah immediately rectifies him. For example, the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, somebody asked him, what will happen if I am martyred properly in if all these conditions are correct form? The Prophet said, all your sins will be forgiven. And then later on, immediately he said, who asked the question? Call him back quickly. And he said, all your sins will be forgiven except your loans and your outstanding payments. The angel Jibreel informed me. So look, so he informed what he had knowledge of, and then Allah said, this is also one bit you're missing. Do you understand? So Hadith Quran is what? The exact words of the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hadith al-Qudsi is the exact meaning has been sent down there and then, but the Prophet phrases in his own words. It's the Prophet's words. Some scholars have said no, Hadith al-Qudsi is also Allah's words, but that to me is a bit confusing and some have not. Then it's like Quran and Hadith is the same thing.
So Hadith in a sense is the Prophet's own ijtihad.
The Prophet does have some kind of ijtihad. Because he has understanding of what should be done, he does his ijtihad, and then if something is according to what Allah has taught him, and then in there, wherever is not what is correct, Allah will say, no, do it this way.
Not reprimanded, but as in...
No, he said corrected. But that's very, very rare, because he would understand in total what needs to be done. And in certain things he had choice, or he would do ijtihad in there, and if he does it, then it comes farz upon us. That's not the discussion in usul. Does the Prophet have his own ijtihad in deen or not?
This is all Allah's direct words.
Direct meaning. This hadith is Allah's direct meaning. Because Allah never revealed this via Jibreel Amin. He inspired the Prophet this meaning, and the Prophet ﷺ, what did he do? He then expressed it in his own words.
The difference between Quran and Hadith al-Qudsi is Quran is actually via Jibreel.
Via Jibreel and Allah's words.
Yeah, and Allah's words. And Hadith al-Qudsi is the words of Allah.
No.
Without.
Not the words of Allah. It's the meaning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the words of the Prophet ﷺ. So this meaning was inspired to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet expressed it in his own words. And day-to-day other hadith are just the Prophets explaining what he's been trained and told to do. Do you understand? So for example, when we ask him a question, does it break fast? He goes, no, it doesn't break fast. How does he know? He's been taught by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And via that he explains questions. And explains whenever he's a scenario or something. And then he's like, Allah told me this, so he relays it. But these are his words. But there's a difference of opinion regarding this.
But is Hadith Qudsi basically, is it wahi or is it...
It's wahi.
So,
It's a wahi.
So then, how come it doesn't form part of the Quran?
Because it's not the exact words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the difference. The words. So, Alif Lam Mim Dhalika Kitab la Rayba Fihi is Allah's words. This may not be Allah's exact word. This is Allah's meaning that Allah has put. This concept, Allah inspired the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Should it start with قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث قدسي or something like that?
But قال الله عز وجل explains that it's Hadith Qudsi. When the Prophet said Allah said, that means that it's a Hadith Qudsi. Is it clear? But again, there's different opinion regarding this. Some say no, the words are from... There are different opinion regarding this, but this to me is clear and it makes it differentiate between the three. And if not, the other interpretations, I got confused. It just seems to overlap. And Quran and Hadith Qudsi doesn't separate. But this interpretation, which some have taken, is to me is much clearer. But again, there's always different opinion regarding this. Do you understand what I've explained to you?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is it clear? Right.
Interpretation says that these are the words of Allah.
One opinion is, yeah. But if you look at it, this doesn't match the Quran. Quran is completely different to this.
It is, but out of just my opinion, if the Prophet was inspired by Allah, other than Allah, then it would have been something very significant.
It is significant.
Depending how many
Hadith
Qudsi there is, because there's thousands and understanding.
There are thousands, about There's not that many.
But if there's only a limited edition,
Mm.
then you would have remembered word for word.
But see, you have to remember, how does Allah speak to the Prophet ﷺ? Does Allah, when Allah converse with the Prophet ﷺ, is it words or is it via meaning? It's a very deep discussion, isn't it? How does Allah inform the Prophet? Is it via meaning or is it via words?
Or even pictures.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very deep discussion. Which I don't have the expertise to go into that discussion. It's to do with aqidah and very deep stuff. But that's why they said these are not the words of Allah, these are the meanings of Allah which the Prophet expressed in his own words. And then the other hadiths are just his own telling us according to his training. Does that make sense?
Most of the hadiths are
This normal hadith.
his understanding.
His understanding and his training. Because not that he's just guessing and he's making up something. He knows what to do. He knows about Salah. Jibreel showed him Salah. So he explains it to us. But it wasn't Allah's word there. Or he knows, for example, about Allah has taught him about honesty, about trustworthiness, about riba, about this, about that, about this, about that. And then when the time comes, he explains it to people as and when he goes along. He was told how to do Hajj. He knows how to do Hajj. Allah inspired him somehow. He had knowledge of how to do Hajj. So when something would happen, he said, do like this. Do like this. When he asked him a question, no, do like this. Don't do like this. But then these are exact words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it is also it's how Allah wants it. That's why He's expressing it that way. Does that make sense? Or is it still confusing? Yeah?